Hello, I'm Matthew Malcolm with American Vineyard Magazine, reporting to you from the Sonoma Grape Expo here today at the Cloverdale Citrus Fairgrounds. We've had a great turnout of growers and PCAs and industry representatives. One of our key presentations was with Anita Oberholster from UC Davis. She's one of the foremost authorities working on the issues with smoke taint, which has been a tremendous nightmare in the last several years, and it's something that's not going away. Fortunately, this year, though, things were pretty good for our North Coast growers overall,
Yes.
right? But you were pretty busy, regardless, getting ready and taking samples and doing all sorts of things like that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Last year it was all smoke impact, answering questions, looking at data, trying to help people to figure out what do we do. So I made a lot of wines, but they're all smoke impacted. This year I went back and said, okay, I need baseline. Give me grapes from the same vineyard you offered to me last year. I know they're not impacted, but I need to know what's normal. So the idea is when I can figure out what is normal for a specific variety in a specific region, then when you do data analysis, you get those numbers back. You know, okay, is this in my normal range or is it above normal? And then figuring out how much do you need above normal? How elevated does it need to be before it actually starts negatively impacting the quality of the wine made from those grapes? That's what we're trying to figure out. So yeah, smoky weather or not smoky weather, I'm busy.
Right. So I wanted to talk specifically about, in your presentation, you discussed what growers can do when they anticipate a smoke exposure event and what they do right after. What can you tell growers as they head into, we're going into the winter, but next season you can count on some wildfire being somewhere, right?
Probably. It's sad to say, but probably, yes. You need to be prepared. You need to have a game plan. And what I suggest is taking grapes from very eyes on, take some samples of grapes, throw it in your freezer, just in case. You may not have warning that smoke or fire is coming your way. So then you can continue during the season, and then your sample, if there's smoke impact, you can go back to your last sample before the smoke exposure, so that you have baseline for your vineyard, for your block. Then when you get your grapes analyzed and you see the numbers, you can compare it and see, okay, did the smoke do anything? Because smoke does not 100% correlate with smoke impact risk. The compounds that cause smoke impact, or what we call smoke taint in wine, you can't see them with the naked eye. They can absorb on particulate matter, but there's not 100% correlation. And we say fresh smoke, and when there's a lot of wildfires, you don't know what is fresh smoke. So just because there's smoke in your vineyard doesn't actually mean that there's going to be significant absorbance of these volatile phenols, the smoke marker compounds, onto your grapes. You may be fine. But you'll only know that if you know what's normal and what's baseline. We're trying to provide that for the whole industry, but we're not there yet. And it's going to take a few years. So for now, you need to do what you can to help yourself for your own situation.
You mentioned, in the event of smoke exposure, be careful what you spray.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And why is that?
There's only been a few studies, and what's been seen is that there's better results when people sprayed like a week in advance of intentional smoking for these experiments. When they did it just before smoke exposure, sometimes it actually made things worse. So we're really concerned about perhaps if you have something wet on your berry, it's increasing the absorbance volume or surface area, causing more absorption, or perhaps it's like acting like a conduit into the berry. We don't really know. We need to study this further. But there's enough evidence that I'm saying be careful spraying things while you have smoke and potentially volatile phenols, your smoke marker compounds in the air. You need to do this preventatively, not in the midst of smoke exposure.
One last thing, just, in the event of a smoke exposure event, the overcast skies and you're wondering, like, what can I do in the vineyard right now? What should I do in the vineyard as far as the care? You don't have the sunlight that you normally have, so I would assume that maybe you don't need as much water on the vines, but is there anything else that they should know to be prepared for?
Yes, so in smoky conditions, the stomata close, right? But we've seen that the moment the sky clears, the grapes or the grapevines recover very quickly. So it seems like there's no long-term effect. But yes, if you have weeks of smoky conditions, it can actually delay ripening. Yes, and it does actually delay everything else. Your water loss would be less, your respiration would be less. But they do recover quickly. So far, so good. But we still need to do a lot of studies in seeing really what is the long-term potential impact on grapevines. But they're pretty resilient. That's good news. But, other than that, I also say if you think your grapes may be smoke impacted and your data is like maybe, maybe not, we still suggest to people to do small-scale fermentations because you can taste both the free and the bound. Sometimes the numbers isn't clear, but tasting the wines, you can get an idea. What would the wines look like if you made wines from these grapes? And something else, if you can pick earlier, pick earlier. The longer they sit in those smoky conditions, the higher your risk does get. So, if you can pick earlier. Make wines if you can. Evaluate those wines. If you're a grower, evaluate them with the winery you sell your fruit to and have a clear discussion. Discuss before fires, before harvest season. What are your steps going to be? How are you going to decide whether you pick or not pick? Everything, you want to make these decisions while everybody's calm and you don't have, a natural disaster going around.
Well, thank you so much for the update. I think we need 5 or 6 more of you, to go around.
Yes, I feel so too.
Well, thank you so much.
Help would be nice. There's so much more I would love to do. But I'm only one person. Obviously, I have a lab. I have students working with me. I have colleagues that I collaborate with. I have colleagues in Washington State and Oregon State as well working on this issue. And, we're collaborating and we're working with and talking with Australians that have been addressing this issue for longer than we have. But still, it's not enough. This is a really, really complex issue. But we're doing our best. I just want to say we are really doing our best. I'm spending as much time as I can on this issue.
Awesome, thank you. We will continue to cover this in American Vineyard Magazine, so read about it there at MatthewMalcolm, CaliforniaAgNet.com.